I'm gonna make a taquerito sauce for a Mexican burrito bowl. The sauce is packed with a ton of flavor, and the bowl is soft enough for me to eat. I've been on a soft food diet for 2.5 years after surgery on my jaw. First, I'm gonna start by making the beans in the Instant Pot. We'll need cream of chicken, ground cumin, garlic powder, chili powder, sage, and oregano. For my protein, I'm going to make beans. I use the Instant Pot and use dried beans and cook them that way. You could buy a can of beans. That would be just as easy. I'm using white beans because those are my favorite. I'm going to look through the beans. I'm using half a cup of beans, and I'm going to look through them to see if there are any rocks, which can happen sometimes when beans are being processed, and also to make sure there are none that are really discolored that need to be picked out. You can pick out broken ones too, that's just a personal preference. I rinsed and drained the beans. A half cup of beans will make about 1.5 cups cooked. I usually cook the beans in stock to give it a little bit of extra flavor. This time I'm using onion stock, and I don't measure out the water exactly. I just make sure it's about 1 inch above the beans, and then I drain off the extra when it's done cooking. I pressure cook it for 45 minutes. The sauce goes by really quick. Start with a can of cream of chicken. Fill up the can 2/3 of the way with water and add that water into the pot. Get it started cooking on medium. We'll need a tablespoon of chili powder, two-thirds of a teaspoon of garlic powder, a third a teaspoon of ground oregano, a third a teaspoon of rubbed sage, I have sage leaves from the garden last year, so I'm breaking them up myself. And a third a teaspoon of cumin. And then I whisk everything together to try and get the lumps out of the cream of chicken. And normally, if I wasn't on a soft food diet, I would make a burrito with whatever you put in a burrito, if you want to put meat or beans or rice or whatever. And then we would always do shredded lettuce and tomatoes. Put the burrito on a plate, pour the sauce over it, add some cheese, nuke it in the microwave for 30 seconds, and that's how we made it at my house. And this recipe is actually, my parents got it from a restaurant they used to go to. They asked if they could have the recipe, and the chef was nice enough to give it to them. I think they were going out of business. But since I'm doing a burrito bowl, I'll probably do rice or quinoa or rice, a mixture of whatever rice, whatever grains I'm going to use. Then I'll do the beans on top. I'll cut up lettuce really tiny and tomatoes really tiny, and mix the cheese in with the beans, because if you just put the cheese on top, then it can kind of form like a, I don't know what to call it, but it forms like a layer that I always felt like I had to bite through. So it's easier for me to, that was the Instant Pot. It's easiest for me to mix the cheese in with the other stuff, so that way it doesn't form its own layer that has to be bitten through. And then I'll pour the sauce on top of the rice and beans mixture. And that'll be that. I cook it on the stove for about 10 minutes to give the flavors time to meld together. And I come by and use the whisk to make sure that it's not sticking to the bottom of the pan. I put a 1/4 cup rice in a little over a 1/3 cup of water. I finely diced the tomato and lettuce. Then I built the bowl with rice on the bottom, beans on top, mixed the cheese in with the rice and beans so that there was no cheese crust over the top. I heated up the bowl in the microwave for a minute to melt the cheese. Then I poured the sauce over the top and topped it with the tomato and lettuce.